Welcome back to the Nullified Take, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor, Blood versus Water. I am joined today by one of the original Blood members of the season, Jordan. Jordan, in fact, you were only on the Blood tribe throughout this whole season. Do you feel like you missed out not being able to jump onto the Water tribe and getting that blue buff, or was it red all the way?
No, I was very happy to stay red, man. It was red all the way, red all day, red all the way. I was happy to stay there. I don't. It's a bit like moving house. Everyone hates moving houses, so the fact that I got to keep my bed at the Blood Tribe, and which is just the sand, by the way, but the fact that I got to stay there and chill and not have to move everything, my backpack and barely any clothes, so. No, it's good to. No, it's good to stay in the Red Tribe.
Where was the merge camp? Was it in the exact same spot that you were at the whole time? Were you there the whole time while you were out there, or did you guys actually move camp locations?
Yeah, so where I was at the Red camp for majority of the game, and then where the merge camp was the Blue camp, so Water. So it actually worked perfectly. I got to spend majority of my days at Red, and then got to change scenery towards the end.
Which one of the two camps did you prefer? Was there one that was better than the other one in your mind? Or was it pretty much the same? It's like when you're sleeping in the dirt, you're sleeping in the dirt, right?
Well, I like the water was better at the Red camp because it was deeper, so you could swim a little bit more. But the Blue camp was a lot more logistically was a lot better. You could move around a lot easier. And towards the end of the game, when you're tired, you don't want to really be doing too much or exerting too much energy. So the Blue camp at the end was pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool. So when you say logistically, was it just getting into challenges and back like the distance or going to tribal council? I know these are the things that normally don't make the TV show, but fans of the show, they normally like hearing some of these behind the scenes stuff. If you can talk to that, like logistically, when you say that, or does it have to do with being able to like go and have conversations separately and not being followed as easily? What do you mean by logistically?
It was more just where everything was. So like where the well wasn't too far away, so it was easy to get there. You could walk off and find leaves for your food, like that was all close. And the water was literally, you could just roll out of your bed or wherever you're laying straight into the water. So everything was just a lot tighter, more compact. I know that sounds lazy, but when you're 40 something days in the game, you've got no energy. So where with the Red camp, you're doing a full trek to go to the toilet, or you're doing a massive trek to get water. So no, it's good that it was nice and close.
Nice. Well, I had a chat with Josh, obviously, previously as well, and he's someone that I rated very highly this season, so I really enjoyed having a chat with him. And he mentioned to me that he was the one that was first approached to go on the show, and then he mentioned it to you, and you were very excited about it. I'm sort of curious to know, were you a fan of Survivor beforehand? Did you know about the show? What was your sort of expectations, I guess, going into this thing, and how was it different? Because I can only imagine it's very different from when you get that first call to say, hey, there's the show Survivor, we might be able to go and play on it.
Yeah, so I was a huge fan of the Australian Survivor. Being honest, I watched a little bit of the American, but I was a really big fan of the Australian Survivor. I watched all the way from season 1. And yeah, just to have the opportunity when they asked Josh, and then Josh came to me and he's like, would you be ready to go? And it's an opportunity that's, once in a lifetime. You're not guaranteed to play again either. So, yeah, as soon as you said, "Would you ready to go?" We've got a short turnaround. We've got about 6 days. I was like, "Yeah, 100%. Like, let's get it done. Like, let's go after it." And I knew what I was getting myself into straight away. Like, I've watched the show. I've watched how physical, especially other survivors around the world. I'd say the Australian one is generally the most physical, I believe. And I knew, for me, I was like, the physical side will be. We can lock that away. Like, me and Josh are both physical people, but it was more, I wanted to see what sort of, I wanted to see how my mental side would hold up in the game. And I really wanted to test myself. So yeah, I grabbed the opportunity with both hands and I was like, let's have a crack.
So you mentioned that it was quite short notice. There was a lot of talk and obviously a little bit of focus on you doing a very heavy gym routine, lifting weights, getting in physical good shape going into the show. I don't know how much of that was put on for the cameras and how much wasn't. What would you do differently in preparation now? I guess because you've been out there and you've played for quite a long time. What would be your biggest I guess tip for people that want to go in there and prepare themselves for the show? And do you feel like you had enough time to prepare yourself?
Oh, I think Josh and myself are very fortunate. We try to stay in shape all year round. Just always be prepared. But yeah, you could definitely, if we had more preparation time, you can definitely do things differently. But with Survivor, it's one of those things where you can prepare as much as you want, but once you're out there, you get hit with challenges you can't prepare for. If that makes sense. So the only advice, the main advice I'd have would be to go on with more weight. To be honest, I lost ridiculous amounts of weight that I didn't think was possible. And if I was to go again, I'd take more weight in there for sure. And that's just extra fat stores. I'd go in a bit bigger. Probably just focus more on strength, really. I think the best advice I'd have was take weight, but also focus on the areas you're going to be strong at. I'm not going to be standing up on a pole for, hours like someone like Geordie or Shay, but, I could probably keep my arms locked over my head a bit longer than other people. And I'd probably focus on areas that I might think's coming up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
And try and stick with those.
Yeah, because I was going to say, being someone who's a bit of a gym rat yourself and being a fitness instructor, I'm assuming you're used to eating a lot of meals throughout the day, smaller portions, so your metabolism is just firing at all times. How difficult was it to adapt to being out there and switching to, I guess, like a cup of rice a day or whatever you guys were living on out there? What is that like? How long does it take your body to get used to, I guess, that deprivation of food, and does it ever get used to it out there?
Oh, it was actually, it was a bit of a shock to the system. We a basic day for me, just for maintenance, I'd have to eat around 3,500 calories. And you go in there and you're lucky to get probably the range of 600 to 800 calories a day. So you feel it straight away, but your body's so smart that you do adapt. That you're going to be hungry, and your body naturally starts to, you can feel yourself getting hungry, but you just know that you're in for the long haul. So mentally, that's where the mental side kicks in. So we were definitely starving, but everyone was, and
yeah,
it was definitely a shock to the system. I think one of the best things I did, this is actually another bit of advice, I reckon. If you love coffee, you need to weed that out fast.
Yeah, that's a big problem for me.
Yeah,
big
oh
problem.
mate.
Love my caffeine. So what is it? Headaches and things like that. What's the worst that happens when you get cut off from the caffeine?
Well, we were very lucky because, well, not lucky, but we had to quarantine before we went on the show. So, I weeded off the coffee in the quarantine. So we had to quarantine in 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, this was when everything was sort of locked down. So we had to go into another state, quarantine for 2 weeks in hotel quarantine. So in that hotel quarantine was the best opportunity, because you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. And I love strong almond lattes. So there's 3 shots in those, and I drink 2 to 3 of them a day. So that's 9 shots. It's a lot. So once we got into hotel quarantine, I just went cold turkey. And the first 5 days, I was getting huge headaches. It was actually interesting to see. I was getting massive headaches, and then by the time we got into the show, I felt pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's, you're kind of hitting things. It's almost like you're giving me advice here if I was ever to go out there and play the game, because I love my coffees, I love my food, I'm always actively busy. So those types of things is interesting to me, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that are thinking of playing the game that are thinking, okay, how do I prepare? What is that period that I need to do things differently leading into a show such as this? And it's interesting to me. But going back to the beginning of the show here, your edit, there were certain times where you were very prominent on the show, there were certain times where you disappeared a little bit and we didn't get to see a lot of what you were up to. So we're going to touch on a few things, I guess, throughout the season here. One of the most visible parts was at the start when you formed a bit of a close bond with the guys like Ben and Croc, and it looked like Sophie was a part of that as well. Do you feel like that was an accurate sort of a showing of who you were aligned with and working with here in the early stages of the game, or were there other people that you also had some strong relationships with that probably didn't feature as much?
I think part of it is, part of that is right. I was very wary before going into the game. I was always going to be noticed as, like, not to sound like a dick or anything like that, but I was always going to be noticed as a physical threat instantly. Like, it's just the way Survivor works. So I sort of wanted to try and stay away from that. But as soon as I saw Croc and Ben, I was like, all right, sweet. There's a couple other big boys here, so we should probably stick together, because the big guys generally turn on each other and pick each other off in seasons gone by. So I was like, maybe we should stay tight. And then with Sophie, I was like, all right, well, it'd be good to work with, a strong female. So I was like, Sophie would be good. She told me about the clue she found for the first tribal with the idol, the one that Chrissy found. So I was like, all right, sweet. So she obviously trusts me, so we trust each other. So it'd be good to have a strong female, 2 other alpha male guys as well. But what they didn't really show much of is I was actually extremely tight with Sam and Jesse as well. So Sam, Jesse, and Amy at that stage, So I actually found myself in a great position early, because I had Croc and Ben, who were, they were walking in the camp doing a lot of stuff, sort of standing out as the alpha males. I was seen as one, but I was in the middle, if that makes sense. So the 2 boys were there. I was with Sophie, and then I also had Sam, Amy, and Jesse here. So I actually found myself in a great position early.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I remember that scene where, for me as a viewer, it was quite confusing when you went to go tell Amy information and she ended up ratting you out immediately back to Jesse and to Sam. But if you were working in a foursome with those guys, it kind of makes sense that she may have not ratted you out as much as you guys were all working together. But it's something that we as viewers potentially didn't understand early on when you gave her a heads up that she might be copying votes.
Well, it was a bit of a paranoia there that kicked in. The way I looked at that was, at that point in time, Croc, Ben, and stuff were going pretty hard for Amy. Amy and Jay at that point. That's after Sophie got voted out, and they sort of thought those two were the linchpin, so they were going hard for them. So me and Jesse actually came up with the play to try and majority of the votes were going to fall on Amy. So we came up with the plan to sort of get her to, I was like, well, we should get her to flush her idol. So we should get her to play her idol, save her, build even more trust, because we weren't sure when Tribe Spot was around the corner. So for us, we were like, Khan's a pretty strong player from what we can see. So, we can build an idol. We'll end up and we potentially end up swapping sides, ending up with Khan as well. We've got a double automatically. So that's where the game. That's what we're thinking. If that makes any sense.
No, it definitely does make sense. So interesting at that point that Sophie was the one that was being seen as this massive target. Obviously, she gets voted out quite early on, and then you have that very awkward scene where she does catch up with you guys, trying to find out what went wrong, and you're trying to get distance at this point. How difficult was it to navigate Sophie, because she seemed to be a bull in a china shop out there, just really trying to bulldoze her way back in there. And I felt for you, because you were on the wrong side of the numbers leading into that vote. So it wasn't much you could have done really about the fact that she got voted out.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, it wasn't for us. We had no idea that was coming, as you're saying. So she's been completely blindsided. And obviously there was numbers from our majority that were in there, because it was only us 3 boys that sort of stayed true. So at that point in time, it was like, there was 2 ways to go there. You either bloody fold and allow the majority to pick you off, or we try and get into a position. So for me, from that point onwards, once Sophie got voted out, I had to cut ties fast. So that's why it was sort of just said, all right, you're in the blue tribe now. You got to go that way, because you've obviously been blindsided. I don't know how or why, but you have been blindsided. But sorry, sort of knew why, but at that point in time, it's like that alliance is gone. Like we now need to make sure we save ourselves over here. So I just went into like full attack mode from that point and just started trying to rebuild all the relations, pull people back in. Started reworking with Sam, Jesse, and Amy, and then the boys as well, to try and take majority back. But Sophie just didn't understand. She didn't understand why we weren't speaking to her. So I think that's why she came in pretty hot. And she's like, why aren't you talking to me? And I'm like, it's not that I don't want to talk to you. It's just, you've obviously been blindsided, and we're on the wrong side of the numbers. So, I've got to make sure. I need to make sure that I just have to go this way. Like it's nothing against you. I just got to go this way.
Yeah, she took it personally, where for you it was all game related. You're like, listen, I've got to think about it. There's $500,000 at stake here. If I get seen talking to someone on the outside, I might be next.
Well, it's all gameplay. Yeah, exactly. Like it was, if someone's in your majority and they get blindsided, but also they cop votes from two others in your majority, you're like, well, who's next here? That throws us into it threw us into an awkward position. It's like, they can either turn on us, and us three boys are, we're in trouble. So I was like, all right, well, let's just go this way and distance ourselves. So yeah, for me, it was automatic, like just turn into, just gameplay.
Yeah. Now, before we go to the tribe swap here and go into the new blood and new water tribes, you obviously got to compete quite a lot with your cousin Josh here in the early stages, and it looked like for the most part you had the upper hand on the one-on-ones that you guys went head-to-head and the team challenges against each other. Is there one that stands out that you still sort of bring up whenever you guys have a conversation and hanging out? Is there a bragging rights out there at the moment for you in some of those challenges?
Nah, we're pretty good about it. I thought there might be. It's more of our mates to give a shit about it. Like like Josh and myself, we knew we were going to go against each other, and like we knew we were about to go hard. So like it was hard for us to do that to each other on TV, and then yeah. So
you both got your moment to shine, right? Because in the team portions, you I felt like had the upper hand on him, and then he had a really good run as an individual person later on in the individual immunities, right? So you both had your moments in the season.
Well, it was good. Like I think we it's good to see. I thought we were very well-rounded players. Like that's what I liked. That's from my point of view. I don't know how everyone else will take it, but I thought me and Josh were pretty good. We were very good socially, strategically, and I think we were good physically as well. But yeah, we definitely had a good run. The start of the season was a lot of rugby stuff, a lot of wrestling, and I was like, oh yeah, here we go. This is the good stuff. And then towards the end, Josh is there. He's a beast with puzzles. So, he was always going to dominate that. I had no doubt in my mind that he was going to get it done with puzzles. And then obviously being locked overhead against Geordie, that was a great moment for me to get a necklace as well. That was a huge bucket list item for me. Just the basic stuff. But no, I think we can be proud of how we were physically in there. Like it's not easy to win challenges or compete in these things, and just to get a few necklaces is unreal.
Yeah, what was it like competing against someone you looked up to? I would assume being a big rugby league fan growing up. It's rugby league that Croc did, right? Always get it wrong.
Yeah.
What was it like going up against Croc? When you guys had to go head to head?
That was unreal. We there was a huge amount of respect there. When Josh and myself played juniors at Melbourne Storm growing up, and when I was there as a 17-year-old, Croc was playing first grade. So it was actually pretty crazy. It was full circle. So when I was there as a 17-year-old playing juniors, and Josh was there as well, Croc was actually in the premiership winning Storm team. So it was actually pretty surreal. And then being on the tribe with him as well, and getting to know him personally was unreal. Like we were really close in the game.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how much did it, I guess, I know you ended up meeting up with Josh, which would have been something you would have been very happy about at that stage in the game. Well, I assume you would have been happy to lock back with him as in a tribe and sort of form with his alliance a very, very strong bond with the guys she had on that side. But how did it feel sort of losing, I guess, Croc and Ben here prior to the merge? Were they a part of your personal plans? And would you have liked to have seen one of the two guys make it through there so you could use them as an additional number?
Yeah, it was. I was close with both those boys. And it was. With the tribe swap, I thought that I landed on my feet big time with that. Like, we all throughout the game, we made it clear that, like, Josh and myself tried to work with people that we thought each other might be working with on the other side, if that makes sense. And
makes sense, yeah.
So tribe swap was an absolute blessing, really. Like, I got to play with Josh, had this really strong majority, but also I'd been working with the loved ones of a lot of people in that blue tribe anyway. So I felt like I had automatic relationships. Like, I was tight with Sam, Mark was there, I was tight with Jesse, Geordie was there, and I felt like I'd already sort of cemented my spot in the majority straight away. And then I had Dave and Amy as well, who I was working with. But yeah, going towards merge, like, I really wish Croc, made it through. I just thought that, Croc, Chrissy, Josh, and myself, we would have been an extremely tight four. We could have done some damage. And, the hardest part about the merge was navigating those idols. So, we could have used another steady couple.
What was it like dealing with someone? I know you're not a big USA Survivor fan, but clearly, Sandra comes into this game 2-time winner. You're probably well aware now that most people have her in the top 4 players to ever play this game in any version of the show. She's seen as a legend. What was it like to go up against someone like that head to head and to have her in your tribe, in both tribes?
It was actually pretty good, with Sandra. As she was always like, all right, do we get rid of her early because she's extremely smart, or do we sort of use her as a shield? Or I actually really got along with Sandra. Like, she was actually really cool, really down to earth, very, very smart. You can't not pick up some tricks and tips if you've played this game that much.
Yeah.
I feel like after playing it once, I'd play it completely different, So playing it 4 times, winning it twice is unbelievable, or 6 times or something crazy.
Yeah.
But she was just really calm, really cool, calm, collected. Like, she knew what she was up to. I actually learned a lot from her, especially in the in the tribal council. She was an operator, very smooth operator. Like, she knew how to cover herself. She knew how to deflect questions. She knew how to do everything. Like, it was actually unreal to watch.
Nice. And how was it dealing with, I guess, Nina and their tribe? And do you think that, if she wasn't to go out at that specific spot, it looked like she had a very close relationship with Josh as well, that she would have formed a part of your plans moving forward? Was it mainly Josh and her having this bond, or were you also able to break in and get close to Nina out there in the game? Did you have plans to have her as a part of that alliance?
Oh, Josh and Nina were extremely tight, coming into that relationship. But it didn't bother me because I knew that once I got there, me and Josh would be automatic. So whoever he was working with, I knew that it'd be, I'd get in with them as well. I developed a good working relationship with Nina as well. She was actually a huge loss to Josh and my game. She was very smart, very, very good player. She would have done some damage. She would have got very far. But she was like the perfect blend. She was physical, she was very smart, very strategic. She was ruthless as well. But she was also she was very good at reading people and getting good information. So, she'd get great information for both of us to use. And, but also she was very good. Like, she was very trustworthy as well.
Josh mentioned that if Nina remained in the game, he said he doesn't know, it's hard to tell now in hindsight, but at that moment, he would have been open to potentially considering a blindside against Mark. And Nina was looking at Mark very closely during this period of the game and obviously trying to push her agenda. Where were you sitting in that? Were you sort of, you obviously got along with Mark really well. How difficult is it to turn against someone that you respect and just get along with, like Mark, this early in the game before you go into a merge? Would that have been on your radar? How would you have felt about a potential blindside, I guess, if Nina didn't leave the game and she was sort of an additional vote for you guys?
Oh, I would have been open to it. Like we were speaking about it. There was just so many other things up in the air, though. With Mark, he's such an honest guy, and whatever you get, like whatever he says, you get. So he was so trustworthy, and we're in great shape to work together to get to merge. That's what you want to do when you get into merge, and you've got Geordie who's out here and you don't know what he's talking about half the time. Like he's just spinning yarns everywhere. But yeah, I definitely would have, if Nina was still in the game, we probably could have moved on Mark a bit earlier. But once we lost her, we just didn't have that. The best thing about Nina is we had a strong number, but not a strong number. We had a strong player with us. So, very smart, very calculated. And we just needed that. Once we lost Nina, we didn't have anyone else that could move against Mark. Geordie was very flaky in the air, Shay as well. Where Nina was solid. Like Nina was a lot like me and Josh, where, we could make a decision to move on it. Where, the other guys are sort of, flaky. You're not sure if you tell them something, they're going to go and, blurt it out. Where Nina was, would have made us a very strong 3. And, obviously what happened in the game, probably would have been smart to move on Mark earlier. But also we just, at that point in time, you can only go with the information you have. And, you've got Geordie floating around causing chaos, and Shay's not sure where she stands.
Amy turned against you, so you didn't even have another option there potentially that you could have worked with. Would that have been another person if she didn't do that? You could have maybe pull her in somehow or bring her with the alliance.
Well, I felt that I found that was very strange from Amy. She was obviously trying to break up me and Josh, but I did. Sorry,
that's right.
Early starts, man. Sorry about that. I did. We had plans for Amy to work with us, and I told her that from the get-go. Once we got to the new tribe, obviously we were in the minority, but I was in the majority because of Josh, and I'd always already built those relationships. And then we spoke about, out of the red people, who can we work with? And I'm like, well, Dave's made it through the fire. He just wants to become part of the majority. So, I got Dave, and I've got a good working relationship with Amy. So, we can work with these guys and ultimately, get all the way through to merge. So, and I said to Amy, I said, stick with us, like you're part of the group. And then, she turned on me.
It's interesting. It's almost like all these players were imploding around you, which left you with the stable option of Mark, which was the only option really, with people turning against you or trying to make big game moves or add to their resume. I'm quite interested to know, as you go to the merge section of the game here, obviously you meet up again with Sam and Jesse. Sam becomes a part of the Majority Alliance through Mark. And you mentioned that you played with both Sam and Jesse in the prior to that first swap. How did they change from the beginning of the game towards later in the game? Because obviously Jesse ends up getting voted out, and Sam was being portrayed at times as being very paranoid on the TV show. Was that kind of accurate? Was there a change in her demeanor and how she was dealing with you as someone that's worked with her before?
Oh, she was. I found she was definitely a lot calmer in the red tribe, but that's the start of the game, and then. Sam was actually pretty consistent. Jesse had a bit of a change, I think, because he made a couple of good moves. He felt a bit of that power. But, the thing was, we spoke to Geordie heading into merge. And we're like, and because Geordie's told us, he's like, Mark, I think Mark's got an idol. So that's a huge problem for such a very good player as Mark to have an idol. So I was like, well, let's get to Chrissy, let's get to Jesse. And then, maybe we should try and think about potentially making a move. Let's see what happens. So we spoke to the boys because we were like, we need to sort of protect ourselves here because he's a very smart player. He's got something, and we were eyeing it up then. And this is where you just said the imploding stuff too. Obviously, they imploded and they just tried to take a swing at Josh. So this is where Mark showed how stable he is again with his trust, and he said, listen, we're gonna side with you boys, and we're gonna make the move. So we left our game in Mark's hands, and and he come through.
Yeah, so we're going to fast forward slightly here. There's definitely a few questions I still want to ask it. I don't know how much time you have, but I'll try and make it close to say 30 or 40 minutes, and I'll have you out of here because I know you're quite busy today as well. One of the questions I had for you was that, we ended up going to Final 6, and you were there with I guess Sam and Mark both in the final six, both having idols, yourself and Josh, Chrissy and Dave at that point, and then you had players coming back in the game. Firstly, how did you feel about the redemption twist and having players come back? Because you were one of the players that really got screwed. I mean, if you look at Survivor Wiki, I think it's got you as 9th place, which you should have been top 6, right? At this point. How do you feel about this twist of players coming back in the game?
Oh, mate, it's I made my peace with it until it came back out. It is Survivor, so people are going to come back in, but to the amount of energy it takes to dispatch of 3 people, and then for 4 people, sorry, and then 3 of them come back. Yeah, I found that pretty ridiculous. Like, I'll be honest, like that's and I come from a sporting background, in any other sport, once you lose, like you're gone.
It's funny you mentioned that because I feel like, I could feel that from Mark. I could feel that from Josh as well, with having to get these players coming back. And then myself, similar to you, having done sports my whole life, like I've also got that mentality that if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. I don't even like draws as well. I'm not a big football fan, but I can respect the skill that goes into, we're talking about football over in the UK, that goes into Premiership and all that. But, draws as well. It always feels strange having a draw, right?
Oh, mate, it was hard to cop because, it took a lot of energy to get him. And, for them to go, like when you're in top 6, that's such an achievement. People can sit back and go, the majority is boring, but, to hold a majority that strong for that long is actually harder to do. You saw the people implode and they all got voted out. I
had a different approach to that, by the way. I definitely think the fact that you had, I know a lot of people online, some the problem is it depends on who you listen to. Like sometimes the noisiest fans are actually the minority. It's like similar to when you work in customer service. Google reviews normally have more bad reviews than good reviews. Most people are probably really happy with how it played out, but you'll get the very noisy ones online. People saying, okay, well, there's all guys alliance, we don't want to see it. But for me as a guy, it's quite inspiring to see guys being able to work together, because I feel like we all fight and there's always this male ego and macho-ness about it, but that was all put aside. You guys were all very competitive, but you found a way to work together and not let the competitiveness take over, which I think people underestimate how hard that is to do for guys. That's why it doesn't happen every single season.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like you watch every season and the guys pick each other off, and then that's why they don't get to the end, because they pick each other off and then they leave too many too many other people around them, and then they get picked off. So we're like, well, why don't we just stay together and then compete against each other, and then may the best person win, and then that's what we were. That was the whole logic behind that. But also, we really liked each other. So that's like if you want to go down to what it really was, we all got along like mates. Like we're all really
Perfect
tight
storm.
now. Oh, we all got. It was like we're all rugby players too. So like. It was like being a part of
one cyclist, right? And one cyclist.
One cyclist,
yeah. Juicy Dave, wasn't he? He's more into cycling, right?
Oh, Juicy. Well, you see all the ones that imploded were the individual athletes. So the team athletes, they stuck to the cause, where all the individuals folded. So
that's fair. I did want to ask you, so obviously they come back in the game, right? And KJ gets this advantage, which is ultimately how you're going to go out of it. Now, I respect the move. I think it's a great move. I think KJ played it perfectly for her situation. From what I see as an audience member, there may be some things I don't know from conversations that happen behind the scenes, but for you being on the other side of that, getting voted out by people being removed from the tribe, you've got people coming in, like there was very little you could do in regards to defending yourself there. The only thing that you had was trying to get Sam out the next round, which people were a little bit critical of you sort of pointing towards Sam when you were part of the jury. How can you talk us through, I guess, the whole feelings that you had in that moment? I know it's probably you've moved on, like you've said, you've tried to like make peace with people coming back in the game, but just the whole craziness of getting KJ coming back and having this advantage, and then what happened on the jury when you were sort of trying to signal to Josh, and Josh has said that didn't influence his decision in any case, but can you talk us through that a little bit? Because some diehard fans believe that the jury shouldn't get involved when it comes to what's happening in the actual game, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's with so what happened when I got voted out as well, it's it was hard to watch because we needed Dave to stay tight for one more move because we really needed to get rid of Geordie because Geordie sits in those final 3 seats against anyone else. He makes it a battle. So we knew that we just needed to get rid of Geordie, and then Dave stays tight with us. We've got Dave, Chrissy, Josh, myself. We then take majority and we get rid of one of those idols.
Yeah.
So we needed Dave to hold strong just so we can finally, get Geordie out and then take out one of those idols. So we were looking at blindside Mark after that, just to get rid of an idol. And then, obviously we'd have Sam by herself, and she, and then we could have gone for her. But, Sam played it up well. She said she's got the idol with her, which spooked them.
Yeah.
I honestly still would have read the bluff and maybe tried to split it on both of us. But that's just the way. That's just the way they went, and it was a good move. It was hard for me and Josh because Josh had the necklace and we didn't even think to pass it to each other. When you're that tired and you haven't eaten or anything like that, your mind's not exactly the sharpest. You're not really thinking. But yeah.
Can you talk to the jury? Can you talk to the jury part of this as well? Because that makes 100% sense to me. Is there rules that you guys as jury members get going into the jury when you sit there? Do they tell you, you're not allowed to make facial gestures, or is there any kind of rule that is put by production there, or is it just let it play out pretty much?
You just can't speak.
Okay, so that's the only clear rule is don't speak.
No speaking.
Outside of that, there's nothing.
No chatting or anything like that. And I got into the jury and then found out that there was 2 idols. And pretty much all I really did was just look pissed off. And then Chris noticed it too, because I was actually fuming. I felt like I'd been sort of betrayed. I felt like I went I didn't sleep that night because I was I've been, I can take a lot of things. I'll take a lot of things just from sport, but to get done by returning players and an advantage, I was pretty filthy.
I get you. Yeah.
And then, Sam did well to, bluff that she had an idol. So that was actually good play from her. I then found out she had the idol from Jessie when I went into the villa, which is obviously you can't say that, but, when you get out. But I sort of just sat there and I was more pissed off. And, Josh sort of looked at me and he just saw. And he's like, Jordan's fuming. But in terms of gestures and looks, everyone looks and does gestures. It's blood versus water. You got a loved one in there. Did anyone blatantly do anything? No, but you can sort of if Josh was sitting there and I looked at him, I'd be able to read him straight away, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and again, the reason I asked you about the rules is because if you played within the rules, you play within the rules. So I more if that is something that production thought was a problem, they would change that in the future, and there would be different rules around that if that is a problem. But I can't blame you for playing the game the way that it's in front of you, right? You can't blame someone. And then obviously the edit also focuses on certain aspects more than others. They can make things look a lot more hyped up for the camera so that there is more drama. So all of that needs to be taken into consideration as well. One of the interesting things here is that you mentioned is that, obviously there was a big blowback when Sam came into Jury Villa. It was pretty heated for her. A lot of people needed to talk to her and that. How do you think she would have done if she actually did make a final? Do you think there would have been a world where she could have explained some of those lies that she had out there? Or do you think it would have, in the moment, it would have just been too fresh for a lot of people in the jury to respect that as a move?
Oh, it's just... This is where it gets interesting. It's in the game of Survivor. You're not. This is going to sound harsh. I'm sorry if you're a big fan or anything like that, but you're not on the game. Right. You're not in the game to impress the public. Unfortunately, that's what I learned. The people that are voting for you are in the game. So you know what I mean. At the end of the day, it's it is. You got to make moves. You got to build a resume on some of that. But people got to like you. That's. Let's be honest. You can get votes by being social or being the person you are. I think Sam played an amazing game. Don't get me wrong, she played a great game. If she was sitting there in those seats, she would have been, her case would have been unreal. She's been a lawyer before as well. So, and she definitely, she had some great moves to her name too. But she rubbed a few people up the wrong way, but that's a part of the game. And, she would have to do some huge convincing there, but she definitely had a shot to win it, I reckon. but she, like I said, you got to respect game. Like I respect how she played. Like regardless of some of the stuff she did, she played a great game. But I think anyone in that top six could have put a case together.
Yeah.
The original top six. But it's it would
No,
have
I
been.
get you. I get you on that because I've been a fan long enough. I've watched over 60 seasons of Survivor, of all Survivor. I've got the buffs here in the background. It'll be a little bit blurred that I'm starting to
Oh,
collect this. I'm a real fan. It's there in the background. You can't see all of them very clearly at the
yeah,
moment,
far
but
out.
yeah. So I'm a fan. Like I'm a real fan. When it comes to it. But I've had my favorite voted out so many times. It's part of the beauty of the show. You're like, oh, I think this person's going to win. They get to the end, they either get voted out or they don't end up. Like this season, for instance, I was a massive Josh fan.
Yeah,
I could see through everything that was happening. I thought Josh would have had a great case if he went up against anyone, even Mark. But then again, I don't even understand all of the interpersonal relationships because I
yeah,
wasn't out there. I'm watching an edited show. Talking
yeah.
about an edit, your edit at some points went a bit missing. What is it that you sort of wish that they showed more of, for you of the journey? Because obviously there's two journeys. There's the journey you had out there, the whole truth of what happened and what your experience was. And then there's the second journey of what actually made the TV show.
Yeah, I think it was you got to we were prepared for this. They've got full edit you however you want. I think I was on a good path at the start. I thought I was getting built pretty well and shown who I really like, who I was, and then I was disappointing towards the end to sort of fade out a little bit, which I've come to peace with as well. We actually did a lot more work in there than we're shown to do. Like you can't get that far without playing the game. You know what I mean? Like I made it 40 out of 47 days, and that was interesting for me. Like that, they sort of made me go a little bit quiet. It was hard. It was hard to watch towards the end because we were doing a lot more work than they were showing, and a lot of players were getting a lot of limelight that weren't really doing much. But not being salty or anything like that. But it was hard because they didn't really show who I was towards the end. I was a lot louder in there. Joked around a lot.
That's what I've been told by everybody. Everybody's told me you think Geordie is a character. You should have seen Jordan. He's a big character as well. So, but it's interesting. You've gone through this experience. You've been out there for 40 something days out of the 47, and there's big chunks of your game that wasn't shown, which just might be a good thing as well for you if you ever were to return in the future, because a lot of people won't know what your actual game is and how you can adapt it in the future. If the call comes for you to pick up your torch again and head back out, maybe hopefully this time to a better location out in the Fiji or something like that, it's not as brutal as being out there in the outback. Would you consider doing this in the future again?
Oh, you have to. It's it's definitely been mentally taxing, physically taxing, but it's also you get the opportunity to play for 500K, and you can do it in 2 months, and it's also what you learn from your experience. You can adapt. Like I'd adapt a lot of different things. I'd play a different game. I'd actually play similar, but I'd obviously add little things in there. But no, definitely. Like we said, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So, regardless of how the body is or how you're feeling, you got to get up for it. If they give you another chance to do it, and you've also got to, you got to respect the people that have applied and applied and applied and applied, and then they watch the show and they love the show. And it's like, if you get asked to do something like this when people would give anything to do it, you got to respect them and you got to do it as well.
Yeah.
But also,
No.
I'm a competitor. I've always competed my whole life, so I know for a fact. You can't really. Oh, but I'm proud of myself though. Also to get to merge, like me and Josh, off that notice to both get there is insane. Like, and that's awesome to get into the top 10 even. That's unreal. So, if they said Jordan, you're going again, I'd be like, all right, well, let's go.
Yeah,
And
exciting. Well, I was going to ask you, have you ever watched the show called The Challenge, or do you know about The Challenge at all?
Yeah, I've heard about The Challenge.
All right. So I normally like to ask this to the more sporty, athletic personalities. The challenge is currently looking for Australian contestants to participate in the Challenge Australia. If the call was out there, is that something that you would consider? I know obviously if there is any casting calls going out, you probably can't talk about it in any case. But is that the type of thing that you would even like to be sort of in? Because that is all purely based on competition, and if you get voted out, you actually go into the arena and you go head to head with another person to fight for your survival in the game. So you always have an opportunity to stay in the game, even if you're outside of the numbers, if that makes sense. I don't know how much you know about it, but it's all competition based.
I've seen it's pretty loud. I've seen the American one's pretty funny. Like it's a lot of shit talk. I honestly think for me, like anything that I would like to do next, I want it to align with who I am.
Yeah.
I don't want to, that's why I really love Survivor, because, you can't hide. You can't hide in Survivor. And everyone that went out there, went on a self discovery journey, or they had it within them, or they're all hard. Everyone got to the end and did well, and everyone had a crack. Where these dating shows, all that stuff. No, I'm not interested in any of that shit. Or like, obviously, I've got a missus, but I'm not interested in stuff that's doesn't align with me, like with my morals and who I am. So, something like the challenge could be like fun. That'd be awesome because you're competing. But even something like SAS could be unreal. Like, I would just like to. I'm not going to go out there and jump on a million shows. But if the call was, if I was asked to go on shows that I felt were good for me and good for what I'm trying to achieve and my brand, I'll definitely give them a crack. I'll definitely want stuff that requires a bit of hard work and skill, some form of skill, like not going and sitting in a villa for 2 months and just sinking beers. But I'm good at sinking beers. But
it's funny. It's funny you mention it, because the challenge has got so many. Like, they've gone through a real, like, the old school seasons were very different from the new school seasons, which is more now. It's kind of slated as the fifth American sport, and they've got like, for instance, workout videos that's coming out now with personal trainers that are in the current cast, and there's a whole sort of metamorphosis happening there. So maybe check that out in the future. But now that you're in the reality TV world, I'm sure there is going to be other interests or calls in the future that is going to come for you to investigate. I think SAS is another really good one to get involved in. I think we had just our first Survivor player doing it this season as well. Lockie was in there. So there's an opportunity for you to go and check that out. You talked a lot about what's next for you and your brand and what you're doing. What is it that you're wanting to do next? Is there anything that people that are listening to this podcast in the audio version, or even checking out it on YouTube, is there anything that they can go and follow or support, and what's happening next for you?
Got quite a bit on at the moment, which is good. Trying to stay busy and really get back into normal life, and just make sure, because with Survivor, that's 5 seconds of your life really, and you don't know what's going to come from it. You had your life before, you got your family and your friends, and you got your businesses that you need to look after, because that's at the end of the day what's going to be there for you. So now I've got a couple of different businesses. I'm wearing my my hoodie now, so this is a clothing brand that we're working on at the moment. It's called Kanji. So this is coming soon. So jump onto my Instagram and have a look, guys.
Is there significance to the name Kanji, or is that just something you came up with by yourself?
So my business partner plays rugby professionally in Japan. So Ikanji in Japanese means good vibes, good life. So
Awesome.
so we're really trying to get that across, and really just push out some really good vibes and be really positive. And then I'm currently working on with two of my other mates who are S&C coaches. So they're both we're working on a online platform called Modern Mentality. So that's based around what we saw in the show. It's about the modern man. About the mind, the body, relationships, career, any issues they might be facing. We want to create a training program for everything, and obviously a community for guys to reach out, and a safe place for us to speak and become better humans, really. So that's a few months. We're really working on that, and I believe that's a purpose that I found in Survivor. So
I believe I found that in Survivor. You know, Survivor brought a lot of values to the surface, and it also made you refocus on what you need to do and what your purpose might be. So, yeah, we're working on that at the moment. So
Well, I mean,
watch the space, guys. So give us a follow and have a look.
Yeah, definitely. If you can send me the links for this afterwards via chat, via DM, I'll make sure to put it in the links when I put this up, and also put it in the audio versions as well for anybody listening to this or watching it. I really enjoy what you're working on. It's inspirational stuff, and I think that we need more of that out there in the world, like the positive vibes. So, definitely I'll check it out myself as well. I'll probably become a supporter of it myself. And like I said, I took out the positive side of seeing a bunch of lads working together, not going after each other. I understand that for fans, they want to see it season in and season out, but we haven't seen this in forever. So it was really positive to see. And with all the time that you have out there, like you mentioned, it's such a small part of your life. I'm sure you would have had a lot of downtime to think about what's next for you. So I'm really excited to see what that is about. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.